You're squinting against the honey gold light of a late Carrion afternoon, sandals scuffing dust that smells like baked earth and dried thyme. Around you, olive trees whisper secrets in a breeze barely strong enough to lift a stray goat hair. Somewhere down the hill, a shepherd's flute wheezes a three-note lament for lost sheep, or maybe just a particularly boring Tuesday. Welcome to Mount Latmos, circa 350 BCE, where the most exciting event of the decade involves a stray dog napping in a broken amphora. You probably won't make it through this day without dozing off. Frankly, neither would the locals. Ahead, the village huddles, like drowsy tortoises in the sun. Whitewashed walls glare back at the sky, and the only movement is a lone chicken debating whether crossing the road is worth the existential effort. Major historical fact: ancient Greek shepherds, like your neighbor Endymion, spent 90% of their time counting sheep, both literally and as a sleep aid. Obscure cultural tidbit: they believed yawns were tiny soul escapes, which explains why everyone here inhales, like they're competing in an Olympian sighing contest. You pass a stall selling dream charms, dried owl feet, and rosemary bundles, because nothing says restful slumber like dead poultry parts under your pillow. Historians still debate whether these trinkets worked or were just Bronze Age snake oil. Endymion himself leans against a cypress tree, looking tragically poetic with his artfully tousled hair and a lyre he definitely doesn't know how to play. He's the human equivalent of a lullaby, pleasant, predictable, and prone to making you yawn just by existing. Another flawless sunset, he murmurs to a disinterested you. She blinks slowly, chewing cud like it's a theological puzzle. You resist the urge to tell him that literally every sunset here is identical, but sarcasm feels cruel when even the bees move at half speed, droning hymns to the god of naps. A vendor offers you watered wine, so thin you could read a scroll through it. For vivid dreams, he promises. You take a sip. It tastes like regret and humidity. 3 old men play patea nearby, moving stones with the urgency of snails, negotiating a truce. One jokes that Hera's jealousy is just her craving a divine nap. Another counters that Tartarus is just a metaphor for insomnia. Light, dry humor. You wonder if Mount Olympus has a celestial coffee shop, or if ambrosia is just an ancient energy drink. As shadows stretch into lavender ribbons, you notice how the light gilds Endymion's cheekbones. Oh dear, he's the kind of beautiful that makes muses yawn. A girl giggles behind a loom, weaving a tapestry of a sheep so realistic it could bore you to tears. He's so profound, she sighs. You think of the profound statement he made earlier, "The sky is blue today," and nod solemnly. Second joke: if overthinking were an Olympic sport, this village would sweep the medals. But no one overthinks here. They underthink, deliberately. If you're enjoying this slow-motion odyssey, gently tap that like button. Think of it as a digital offering to Hypnos, god of sleep. Subscribe for weekly journeys into history's coziest corners. And in the comments, whisper where you are right now and your local time. Let's map this lullaby across continents. The air cools like wine settling in a cup. Cicadas begin their vespers, a sound so rhythmic it syncs with your heartbeat. Somewhere, a goat bleats in its sleep. Third joke: even the fates must nod off sometimes, explaining why your life thread occasionally gets tangled. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey where the real magic happens. Bedtime, without a single dramatic quest. Nightfall arrives like a dropped curtain. No applause, just a chorus of crickets, tuning their minuscule lyres. Stars pepper the sky like spilled salt on obsidian. You're back on the hillside, where Endymion has arranged his cloak over a patch of grass softer than a philosopher's unresolved argument. "I'll stargaze a while," he announces, as if this isn't his nightly routine. Spoiler, he'll be snoring in 6 minutes. Callback. Remember that dream charm vendor? His owl feet dangle from Endymion's belt, looking grimly optimistic. The moon, oh, the moon, rises like a silver coin paid to the night. Major historical fact. Ancient Greeks used lunar phases to schedule everything from weddings to sheep shearing, believing full moons amplified dreams. Obscure cultural tidbit. They also thought moonbeams could untangle knotted hair, which explains why Endymion's locks look suspiciously smooth despite zero grooming. Scholarly uncertainty. Experts still argue whether Selene, goddess of the moon, drove her chariot across the sky, or just outsourced the job to underpaid constellations. Endymion shifts, pillowing his head on a rock wrapped in lamb's wool. Behold, you think, the world's first memory foam. He murmurs about contemplating celestial patterns, but his eyelids are already at half-mast. A sheep snores beside him. Light, dry humor. You imagine Zeus, rolling his eyes from Olympus. Mortal hobbies, stargazing, napping, pretending to stargaze while napping. Above, Selene's chariot glides soundlessly over Mount Latmos. She spots Endymion, a smudge of human perfection in the gloom, and sighs. Here we go again. Night after night, she watches him sleep, not in a creepy way, mostly, but with the wistfulness of someone who's eternally employed. Moonlight shifts, painting his face in monochrome. Second joke, divine love is just cosmic loneliness with better special effects. You notice something peculiar. Endymion's lips move. Is he talking in his sleep? The sheep, he mumbles, are plotting to borrow my lyre. Selene leans down, chariot wheels dimming to avoid waking him. This is it, you realize. The accidental invention of pillow talk. Third joke, nothing bonds like a one-sided conversation with an unconscious shepherd. She whispers back about eclipses and celestial traffic jams. It's less romantic dialogue, more lunar podcast for the comatose. Down in the village, a baby wails. A dog howls at Selene's chariot. Callback, that chicken still hasn't crossed the road. History unfolds in hushed tones here. No thunderbolts, no wars, just a goddess monologuing to a man who dreams of sheep revolutions. You yawn, soul escape and all, as Selena's voice blends with the breeze. Her words aren't recorded, of course. Scholarly footnote. Ancient pillow talk is tragically unarchived. The moonbeam on your skin feels like chilled silk. Endymion smiles, faintly at Selena's story about a quarrelsome Orion. You drift too, wrapped in a night where myth isn't epic. It's a lullaby, whispered to the already asleep. Dawn arrives not with fanfare, but with the hesitant blush of a shy deity. Pink light bleeds across the eastern hills, revealing Endymion exactly where night left him, prone, serene, and utterly oblivious. The village stirs like a giant reluctantly rolling over, in bed. Callback, that chicken has finally crossed the road. It stands on the other side, looking profoundly unimpressed with its own achievement. Major historical fact, ancient Greeks viewed dawn, Eos, as a separate goddess from the sun, Helios, essentially having a celestial shift change. Efficiency experts, they were not. You approach Endymion's hillside. His breathing is deep, rhythmic, and frankly, contagious. A small crowd has gathered at a respectful distance. 5 villagers, 2 sheep, and a very judgmental crow. Old Theron, the part-time philosopher, full-time olive presser, strokes his beard. He hasn't moved. He observes gravely, not even a twitch. A child pokes the sleeping shepherd's foot with a stick. Nothing. Light, dry humor. You briefly consider the existential dread of a shepherd missing his own flock's morning existential dread. Selene's moon chariot is long gone, replaced by Helios's sun chariot, clattering across the sky like an over-enthusiastic delivery cart. Obscure cultural tidbit: Greeks believed the sun, God's horses, needed daily earplugs woven from clouds to muffle their fiery snorts. Explains the occasional fluffy wisp in an otherwise clear sky. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether Helios actually drove the chariot or just set it on autopilot while catching up on divine paperwork. Theron organizes a response committee consisting of himself. Right, he declares. We shall observe and document for posterity. He produces a wax tablet, stylus poised. Observation 1. Subject is asleep. He writes this down with tremendous solemnity. Second joke. Bureaucracy, it seems, is the true constant of civilization. The crow cause, possibly offering peer review. By midday, Endymion remains a statue of repose. Rumors flutter through the village like drowsy moths. He's cursed. He's blessed. He owes money to Ares. The dream charm vendor sees a prime marketing opportunity. Guaranteed Selene-approved sleep charms. He hawks, now adding dubious moon-shaped cookies to his owlfoot inventory. You buy one. It tastes like chalk and misplaced hope. Third joke. The first influencer was probably a Neolithic caveman selling guaranteed mammoth-repelling rocks. The village adjusts. Sheep wander unsupervised, discovering a taste for Theron's prize lettuce. Children dare each other to touch Endymion's immobile hand. A poet composes an ode to his eyelashes. Callback. Remember the shepherd's flute? Its mournful wheeze now plays a dirge for lost productivity. You find a patch of shade, the heat thick as spilled honey. Helios beams down, indifferent. Endymion sleeps on. His pillow talk, it seems, required overtime. Nights become the village's new theater. As dusk bleeds into indigo, everyone finds a reason to amble near the hillside. Blankets appear, picnic baskets. Even the disinterested you makes nightly appearances, chewing her cud like a critic awaiting the main act. Major historical fact. Ancient Greeks treated sleep as a liminal space. Not quite life, not quite death, making Endymion's state a fascinating, slightly spooky spectator sport. Scholarly uncertainty. Experts still argue whether Selene actually chose to freeze Endymion in sleep, or if it was a divine workplace accident involving a misfired moonbeam. Selene arrives punctually, her chariot's silver glow dimming to a respectful nightlight setting. She hovers, a luminous stage manager. The crowd hushes. Endymion, the perpetually drowsy leading man, remains motionless until his lips part. A collective intake of breath rustles through the spectators. The stars, he murmurs, voice thick with sleep, are sheep with very shiny wool. Selene beams. Literally, her light intensifies for a moment. She leans down, close enough that her moonbeam hair trails like liquid silver near his face. Indeed they are, beloved, she whispers, her voice carrying on the still air like a cool breeze. And Orion's belt, merely a celestial shepherd's crook someone left lying about. Light, dry humor. You imagine celestial janitors grumbling about tidying up constellations after closing time. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Greeks believed listening to sleep talkers could grant prophetic insights, hence the eager audience scribbling notes on wax tablets. Theron records diligently. Subject compares stars to ovine entities. Goddess concurs. Significant. The crow pecks at his stylus. Second joke. If Pillow Talk had an ancient Yelp review, this would be 5 stars for originality, 1 star for coherence. Selene continues her nightly monologue. Tales of comets getting speeding tickets from starry-eyed constellations. Grumpy clouds refusing to rain on Tuesdays. The sheer impracticality of dragging a moon across the sky every single night. It's less romance, more divine venting session to an unconscious therapist. Endymion occasionally offers profound feedback. Woolly. By the third night, a trend emerges. Young lovers start accidentally falling asleep near the hillside, hoping Selene's proximity might bless their own sleepy murmurs. Third joke. The birth of the awkward group sleepover. Sponsored by Lunar FOMO. A teenage boy whispers to his dozing sweetheart, "Your hair is like well-tilled soil?" She snores louder in response. Progress. Callback. The Dream Charm vendor now offers Selene's secret whisper bundles. Lavender, moon-dried thyme, and a single, highly questionable owl eyelash. You decline. The air hums with quiet expectation. The only sounds Endymion's breathing, Selene's soft voice, and the relentless scribbling of Theron's stylus. Hypnos, god of sleep, must be chuckling somewhere. His domain just got its first tourist attraction. Sunrise paints the village in shades of apricot and exhaustion. Callback. Theron, the philosopher olive presser, hasn't slept in 3 days. His beard looks like a bird's nest constructed during an earthquake, and his wax tablet is crammed with observations like subject's left pinky finger twitched, unconfirmed, and goddess mentioned a nebula shaped like a slightly squashed grape. Significance? Major historical fact. Ancient Greeks believed prolonged observation of divine phenomena could grant wisdom, or at least a decent headache. Theron seems to be testing both theories simultaneously. You notice the practical problems creeping in. Endymion's flock, lacking their shepherd's extremely passive guidance, has dispersed. One particularly adventurous ewe is discovered nibbling the sacred laurel wreaths in the tiny village shrine to Apollo. Obscure cultural tidbit. Removing offerings mid-nibble was considered bad luck, so the villagers just leave her there. Apollo's statue now wears a slightly chewed wreath, giving the god a rakish, disheveled air. Light, dry humor. You imagine Apollo sighing, "Mortals? Can't even guard a shrubbery properly." The Dream Charm vendor, sensing a niche market, pivots. Gone are the dubious owl parts. Now, he sells authentic Endymion replica rocks. Ordinary river stones wrapped in lamb's wool. Guaranteed to induce profound contemplation, or at least a decent nap, he cries. Surprisingly, they sell out. Second joke. The first celebrity endorsement was probably a caveman grunting approvingly at a particularly pointy stick. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether Selene intended for Endymion to sleep indefinitely, or if she just got distracted mid-boon beam and forgot the off switch. Endymion himself remains blissfully unaware. A light dusting of pollen coats his still form. Bees investigate him cautiously, buzzing in confusion. Third joke, even insects recognize bad work-life balance when they see it. Theron, fueled by watered wine and obsession, attempts to interview Selena directly. He stands on a wobbly stool, shouting questions skyward. "O Radiant One, is the sleep state permanent? Are there health benefits? Pension plan?" Celine, of course, is busy moonlighting elsewhere. Only the judgmental crow answers, dropping an olive pit perilously close to Theron's head. The phenomenon deepens. It's not just Endymion anymore. Callback. Remember the girl sighing over his cheekbones? Young Lyra fell asleep yesterday while weaving her sheep tapestry. She hasn't woken since. She lies peacefully on her loom bench, fingers still loosely clutching the shuttle. Her mother wails dramatically, then pauses to adjust Lyra's pillow. "Comfort is important," she sniffs. Major historical fact. Sleep was sometimes seen as a form of divine possession or prophecy in ancient Greece, making sudden, unexplained slumber both terrifying and potentially profitable for local soothsayers. A traveling physician arrives, drawn by the whispers of a sleeping plague. He pokes Endymion with a bronze rod. He sniffs Lyra's breath. He consults a scroll so old the papyrus crumbles at the edges. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Greek physicians diagnosed ailments by tasting a patient's earwax. Thankfully, he refrains. His verdict? An excess of pneuma, vital spirit, trapped by lunar aether, upper air. His prescription? More observation, and possibly leeches. Later, he charges 2 drachma and leaves, looking vaguely important. Light, dry humor. The Hippocratic Oath apparently had a clause about billing before fleeing baffling cases. Theron sees his chance. He declares the hillside a sacred onerotopian, a dream observation site. He sets up a collection box, a cracked amphora, for maintenance offerings. Second joke. Early tourism, it seems, involved less sightseeing and more sight sleeping. Villagers toss in withered carrots and chipped pottery. The crow steals a particularly shiny button. Celine, returning that night, notices the small crowd still gathered, now equipped with blankets and snacks. Her divine brow furrows slightly. Her moonbeams, usually focused solely on Endymion, seem to flicker uncertainly over the spectators. Scholarly uncertainty. Experts remain divided on whether Selena froze Endymion out of love, possessiveness, or sheer divine annoyance at mortal interruptions to her nightly monologues. Tonight, her voice is softer, directed solely at Endymion, trying to ignore the rustle of Theron's frantic note-taking. "The Pleiades," she murmurs, "are squabbling again. Maya thinks Electra borrowed her stardust without asking." Endymion sighs contentedly in his sleep. Shiny, dust. Third joke. You wonder if Mount Olympus has divine HR dealing with complaints about moonlight voyeurism. Down below, another villager, old Manos, the part-time goat herd, yawns cavernously while watching, leans against a warm rock, and starts snoring softly. Theron's stylus hovers. A new data point. The epidemic, it seems, is contagious. The Dream Charm vendor starts taking pre-orders for anti-Selene earplugs made of pure, unverified speculation. You find a soft patch of grass, the murmur of Selena's voice, and the rhythmic scribbling of Theron's stylus blending into a strangely soothing lullaby. Hypnos might be outsourcing tonight. Selena's next visit has a distinct air of divine flusteredness. Her chariot, usually a model of serene glide, wobbles slightly on approach, like a celestial charioteer realizing she left the oven on. Her moonbeams, normally focused with laser precision on Endymion's sleeping form, now dart nervously across the assembled villagers. Major historical fact. Ancient Greeks believed gods could be embarrassed or inconvenienced by mortal attention, sometimes leading to unpredictable divine reactions. Theron, oblivious to the cosmic awkwardness, waves his wax tablet enthusiastically. O luminous one, query regarding subjects' REM cycles. Does divinity experience dream paralysis? Callback. The disinterested you, now a semi-permanent fixture, chooses this moment to release a long, resonant bleat that echoes across the silent hillside. Selene's silver horses shuffle their hooves, scattering tiny sparks of cold light. Light, dry humor. You imagine Selene muttering under her breath, "Mortals, worse than paparazzi. At least the constellations just stare." Her voice, when she addresses Endymion, is noticeably quieter, tighter. Orion attempted archery again, missed entirely. Hit a cloud, caused minor drizzle over Thrace, utterly predictable. Endymion sighs. Damp, wool, obscure cultural tidbit. Some rural cults believed concentrated moonlight could cure warts or inspire mediocre poetry. Theron, ever the opportunist, angles his tablet to catch Selene's glow, hoping for a burst of insight. He gets a faint reflection and a crick in his neck. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether gods experienced social anxiety or if it was just projection by nervous mortals. Selene's increasingly strained monologue suggests the former might be plausible. She recounts a tedious argument between minor star nymphs about nebula fashion trends. Second joke. Celestial gossip, it turns out, is just as mundane as village chatter. Just with more twinkling, the sleep spreads. Callback. Old Manos. The goatherd is now firmly entrenched in slumber beside Lyra the Weaver. His snores harmonize oddly with the distant, mournful flute. A small shrine is hastily erected near Endymion's rock. Just a pile of smooth stones and a clay bowl of olive oil someone felt was suitably somnolent. The Dream Charm vendor sells Selene calming incense, mostly dried lavender and ground snail shell. Third joke. The first attempt at crowd control for a divine phenomenon involved scented smoke and wishful thinking. Selene, finishing her story about a comet with terrible navigation skills, flicks her reins a little too sharply. Her chariot jerks upward, bathing the entire hillside in a sudden, startlingly bright wash of light before she vanishes into the pre-dawn gray. Theron blinks, temporarily blinded, but his stylus never stops moving. Divine exit, abrupt, possible irritation, noted. Subject undisturbed. Hypothesis. Goddess requires better audience management strategies. Dawn finds the village transformed. The hillside is no longer just a curiosity. It's a burgeoning attraction. Word has trickled down the mountain path. Callback. Remember the physician who prescribed leeches? He's back, accompanied by 3 dusty travelers from Miletus, clutching bedrolls and looking hopeful. Major historical fact. Ancient Greeks undertook pilgrimages for healing, oracles, and increasingly, it seems, peculiar spectator events. Sleep tourism is born, complete with terrible souvenirs. The Dream Charm vendor has expanded his stall. Guaranteed Selene spot viewing rocks. Higher elevation, marginally less comfortable. And authentic Endymion, snore sound replicas a seashell you hold to your ear, supposedly capturing the rhythm, but mostly just echoing the sea. Theron has appointed himself chief honorologist, dream scholar, and head of pilgrim relations. He's organized the sleepers, Endymion, Lyra, Manos, and now 2 more villagers and a bewildered-looking traveler from Miletus into a neat row. He's even labeled them with small clay tags. Subject Alpha, Subject Beta, Textile, Subject Gamma, Caprine Adjacent, etc. Obscure cultural tidbit: some Greeks believed orderly arrangements pleased the gods, making phenomena easier to study or ignore. Theron offers guided tours for a small fee. Olives, cheese, usable pottery shards accepted. Light, dry humor. You overhear him explaining to a pilgrim. Note: Subject Alpha's superior cheekbone definition, a key factor in divine attention acquisition, we theorize. Subject Epsilon, Milesian, demonstrates a classic supine posture, common in mid-level existential fatigue, scholarly uncertainty. Experts fiercely debate the existence and purpose of ancient Greek incubation temples, where people slept seeking healing dreams. Was Mount Latmos becoming an impromptu, unlicensed version? Celine's next appearance is brief and businesslike. Her light is dimmer, focused solely on Endymion, ignoring the murmured prayers, the clink of offerings in Theron's amphora, and the pilgrim sketching furiously on a piece of bark. Ares got into another fight with his own helmet plume today, she whispers rapidly to Endymion, utterly mortifying. For him, obviously. Endymion, the epicenter of this quiet storm, remains sublimely unconscious. Fluffy, plume, second joke, divine pillow talk, when monitored by a paying audience, loses some of its intimacy. It's less confession, more celestial news bulletin for the comatose. Callback: the judgmental crow has become Theron's unofficial assistant, hopping along the row of sleepers, occasionally pecking at a loose thread or a shiny button. The chicken, now a local celebrity for its road-crossing feat, struts near the edge of the crowd. Ignored. Third joke: fame, even in a sleepy village, is fickle and feathery. As Celine makes her hasty exit, one of the Milesian pilgrims, inspired or simply exhausted, lies down on a spare blanket Theron rents out. He closes his eyes with intense concentration. Within minutes, his breathing deepens. Theron's eyes gleam. He reaches for a fresh clay tag. Subject Zeta, aspirant. Initial observations: promising snore timbre, slight drool, commendable commitment. The dream charm vendor starts a waiting list for pilgrims' slumber bundles. You find a spot away from the organized rows, the murmur of Theron's commentary, and the soft chorus of snores blending into a strangely comforting drone. Hypnos, it seems, has opened a franchise. Theron's Oneirotopeon has developed protocols, rigid ones. Callback: the row of sleepers now has strictly enforced contemplation zones, marked with pebbles, no closer than 5 paces, unless paying premium offering. A full wheel of goat cheese grants inner circle access. Major historical fact: ancient Greek sanctuaries often had complex rules governing proximity to sacred objects or sleeping figures believed touched by the divine. Violation risked divine wrath or, worse, bad Yelp reviews from fellow pilgrims. Theron patrols like a sleep-deprived centurion, measuring gaps with a knotted string. Subject Theta's elbow encroaches upon Subject Iota's aura. Rectify, he barks at a bewildered pilgrim's relative. Obscure cultural tidbit: some believed the pneuma, breath spirit, of deep sleepers was contagious. Pilgrims now deliberately yawn near the sleepers, hoping to catch the blessed drowsiness like a spiritual cold. The sound is a cavernous, synchronized chorus. Light, dry humor. You imagine a minor god of yawns, feeling suddenly overworked, drowning in divine paperwork, tracking all this inhaled soul escape. Celine's arrival is later than usual. Her chariot seems hesitant, skirting the edges of the mountain before descending. Her light is diffused, almost shy. She focuses intently on Endymion, ignoring the yawns, the clink of Theron's offering amphora, now suspiciously heavy, and the pilgrim artist attempting a moonbeam sketch on sheepskin. Hephaestus, she murmurs, voice barely louder than the breeze, invented a self-stirring ambrosia pot. It malfunctioned, covered Aphrodite in sticky divinity. She was not amused. Endymion's lips twitch. Sticky, fleece, scholarly uncertainty. Historians still argue if Celine's stories were genuine celestial gossip or improvised lullabies for an audience of one increasingly surrounded by mortals. Second joke. Divine life, it seems, involves just as much workplace mishap and marital discord as the village taverna. Just with more glitter, Theron, emboldened by his administrative success and several amphoras of offerings, attempts divine communication again. He clears his throat, projecting towards the moon like a bad thespian. Oh, silvery benefactress! Query regarding subject Alpha's caloric intake. Does divine moonlight provide sustenance? Should we attempt broth? Celine's chariot visibly shudders. A moonbeam lances out, not towards Theron, but towards his carefully stacked wax tablets. They instantly frost over, the wax becoming brittle, the stylus marks blurred into illegibility. Third joke. The first known divine response to peer review was a celestial cold shoulder. Literally, Theron gapes, poking his frozen records. The crow caws, a sound suspiciously like laughter. Theron's frozen records become a secondary attraction. Pilgrims poke the frost-rimed tablets, whispering in awe. Touched by Selene, a divine sign, probably means stop asking stupid questions, mutters the dream charm vendor, now selling frost-touched wisdom fragments. Shards of ice delivered at dawn, they melt quickly. Major historical fact, spontaneous ice, or frost in unlikely places, was often interpreted as direct divine intervention in the ancient world. A weather report from Olympus. Theron, after initial panic, embraces it. The goddess has blessed my research with archival challenges, he declares, chipping carefully at a tablet. Clearly, she desires more complex methodologies. He starts using the frozen surface to sketch diagrams of Endymion's aura. Callback. The disinterested you, now practically a mascot, has learned to nudge Theron's offering amphora for fallen olives. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some rural Greeks believed animals, especially those lingering near sacred sites, could act as intermediaries or spirit guides. The you is suddenly getting a lot more respectful nods. Light, dry humor. You wonder if her spirit guide messages are just requests for better quality snacks. Celine's visits grow shorter, her voice tighter. She's reciting celestial meeting minutes now. Motion to adjust the Pleiades trajectory by 0.3 degrees east. Proposed by Aquarius. Seconded by Ursa Minor. Debate. Tedious. Outcome. Pending further stellar surveys. Endymion remains the picture of serene ignorance. Shiny degrees. The breaking point arrives not from Selene, but from higher up, the divine chain of command. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians fiercely debate whether Zeus actively monitored minor goddesses' moonlighting hobbies or just relied on divine tattletales. Tonight, the answer comes crashing down, literally, as Selena whispers about nebula, tax assessments. A single, sharp crack of thunder splits the clear night sky. Not a storm cloud in sight, just one blindingly bright bolt of lightning, striking a harmless, distant hilltop with earth-shaking force. Second joke, Zeus's version of a strongly worded celestial memo. Keep it down. Some of us are trying to counter-snore Hera. The effect is instantaneous. Selene's chariot jerks skyward so fast it leaves after images. The pilgrims gasp, dive for cover, or freeze like startled rabbits. Theron drops his frosty tablet. The judgmental crow vanishes in a flurry of panicked feathers. Even the sleepers seem to pause. Endymion's breathing hitches. Lyra sighs. Third joke. The first noise complaint in history was filed by the King of the Gods, citing excessive mortal gawking and insufficient celestial peace and quiet. Silence descends, thick and stunned. The moon, suddenly seeming very small and far away, casts a pale, chastened light. The dream charm vendor whispers, limited edition, Zeus-approved quiet contemplation charms, available tomorrow. Pre-order now. You lie very still in the sudden, ringing silence. The scent of ozone and sheep, dung heavy in the air. Hypnos, it seems, has been put on notice by corporate. The silence after Zeus's celestial memo isn't peaceful. It's the brittle quiet of a classroom after the headmaster slams a door. Callback. Theron's frost-covered tablets lie forgotten. His chief honorologist hat sits askew on his head as he stares, wide-eyed, at the distant smoking patch on the hillside. Major historical fact. Ancient Greeks interpreted such unambiguous divine displeasure as miasma, ritual pollution requiring immediate cleansing. Panic, therefore, is the order of the day. The dream charm vendor is already ahead of the curve. Purification bundles guarantee Zeus pacifying herbs, mostly sage, and a pinch of wishful thinking. Pilgrims scramble like startled beetles. Blankets are snatched, offerings hastily grabbed back from Theron's amphora, now looking less like a sacred repository and more like evidence. Obscure, cultural tidbit. Some believed thunderclaps could literally scatter one's wits, requiring a ritual involving spinning in circles 3 times counterclockwise while chewing laurel leaves. Several pilgrims attempt this near the sleeping row, adding dizziness to their terror. Light, dry humor. You imagine Zeus watching from Olympus, muttering, "Mortals, make one little atmospheric adjustment," and suddenly, it's interpretive dance time. Theron, wits presumably scattered, starts spinning. He collides with subject Iota, a visiting potter from Kos, sending them both sprawling near Endymion's feet. Selene is conspicuously absent the next night. The sky is merely dark, punctuated by stars suddenly seeming colder, more distant. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether Zeus formally reprimanded Selene, or if she's simply mortified by the whole mortals getting zapped incident. The effect is the same. No moonbeam spotlight, no divine whispers. Endymion sleeps on, blissfully unaware his celestial radio station has gone off air. Second joke. The village's hottest attraction just lost its headliner. Theron, nursing a bruised dignity and a spinning headache, stares at the empty sky. His wax tablets are useless. His offering amphora is half empty. His credibility, well, the crow perches on the amphora's rim, dropping a pebble into it with a pointed clink. Desperation breeds innovation, or in this case, deeply questionable DIY projects. Callback. Remember the dream charm vendor? He's pivoted again. Gone are the Selene trinkets. Now his stall boasts Zeus-approved contemplation kits, containing a small lump of clay, symbolizing the earth not struck by lightning, a sprig of sage, and a tiny, utterly non-functional bronze lightning bolt charm. Sales are slow. Major historical fact. When traditional divine channels failed, ancient Greeks sometimes resorted to creating their own simulacra, representations or stand-ins, to attract divine favor or fill the void. The villagers, missing their nightly spectacle, and Theron, missing his purpose, decide they need a moon. The project is ambitious, fueled by watered wine and existential dread. Using a large, discarded potter's wheel from Subject Iota's workshop, a frayed fishing net, several stolen, repurposed white tunics, and an alarming quantity of olive oil for lubrication, they construct Luna Secundus. Obscure cultural tidbit. Greeks occasionally used reflective discs or polished shields to catch and redirect moonlight in rituals. This is not that. Their moon is lopsided, lumpy, and smells faintly of fish. Light, dry humor. You imagine Hephaestus face-palming in his forge. Amateurs. The netting is all wrong for diffuse luminescence. Theron, seeking redemption, is appointed chief lunar operator. He's tasked with slowly turning the creaky potter's wheel mechanism, while villagers below hold torches near the oiled cloth surface, hoping to simulate a gentle glow. Third joke. The first attempt results in a flickering, jerky light show that looks less like the moon and more like a nervous firefly having a seizure. The disinterested boss in alarm. Scholarly uncertainty. Experts remain divided on whether ancient communities ever attempted artificial celestial phenomena, but consensus suggests if they did, it probably wasn't powered by elbow grease and desperation. Callback. The judgmental crow watches from a safe distance, possibly taking notes for its avian newsletter. Mortals build sad sky ball. Review. 1 star, not actual star. Endymion, bathed in the erratic, fish-scented wobble light, murmurs, flickery. Sheep? It's not Selene. It's barely moonlight. But Theron beams, grease smeared on his forehead. Observation. Subject Alpha responds to simulated lunar stimulus. Hypothesis. Divine attention may be replicable with sufficient engineering. He gestures for more torch waving. The wheel groans. The moon lurches. The dream charm vendor starts taking pre-orders for authentic artificial moonbeam fragrance, eau de olive oil and hope. You settle back, the creak of the wheel, and Theron's hopeful grunts replacing Selena's whispers. Hypnos might be weeping, or just face down on his couch. It's hard to tell. The great fake moon experiment, Luna Secundus, lasts precisely 1 night. Dawn reveals its ignoble fate, the oiled tunics sagging like damp laundry, the fishing net hopelessly tangled in the potter's wheel, and the whole contraption listing sideways like a sunken trireme in a sea of sheep dung. Callback. Theron, grease-streaked and defeated, stares at the wreckage. His chief lunar operator sash, hastily woven from unraveled loom thread, hangs askew. Major historical fact. Ancient Greek technological ambition often outpaced material science, resulting in spectacular, sheep-startling failures. Obscure cultural tidbit. Abandoned projects were sometimes ritually buried by dumping them in a ravine to appease offended spirits, or just to hide the embarrassment. Villagers debate which ravine is deepest. The mood is one of profound deflation. thicker than yesterday's lentil stew. Pilgrims pack up, muttering about refunds in the form of slightly less withered carrots. Light, dry humor. You imagine Hephaestus finally looking away from his forge monitor, muttering, "Told you. Net tension critical. Amateurs." Theron slumps onto a rock near Endymion, who sleeps through the decommissioning with Olympic-level dedication. Perhaps, Theron sighs, poking a greasy tunic fragment. Direct observation requires less engineering. The judgmental crow drops a single, shiny olive pit onto the fake moon's carcass, a fitting epitaph, scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether periods of intense religious or spectacle-focused activity were followed by widespread apathy or just quieter forms of devotion. Here, apathy wins. The organized rows of sleepers dissolve. Lyra's family gently carries her home, loom bench and all. Old Manos is propped against his favorite olive tree, still snoring softly. Only Endymion remains on the hillside, Theron's sole remaining subject alpha, looking beautifully, pointlessly serene. The Dream Charm vendor rebrands again. Retro classic owl foot bundles. Nostalgia for simpler, less electrified times. Sales are modest but sincere. Second joke. The first economic recession was probably triggered by a god's noise complaint and a bad moon replica. Silence returns to Mount Latmos. Not the brittle silence after Zeus's thunderbolt, but the deep, woolly quiet of a place finally exhaling. Callback. The disinterested you reclaims her spot near Endymion, chewing with the solemn contentment of one who never bought into the hype. Major historical fact. Ancient Greek rural life was fundamentally cyclical. Seasons, harvest, naps. The recent excitement was an anomaly, a stone dropped in a still pond. Now, the ripples fade. Theron, stripped of titles and amphoras, simply sits. He watches Endymion sleep. No tablet, no stylus, just watching. Obscure, cultural tidbit. Simple, sustained observation, without agenda, was sometimes called theoria, contemplation for its own sake, believed to bring a quiet kind of wisdom. Theron looks peaceful, bored, but peaceful. After several nights of conspicuous absence, Selena returns, but differently. No grand chariot descent. Her light first appears as a faint silvering on the distant ridge, hesitant, like someone peering around a corner. She creeps across the sky, her beams diffuse, tentative. She focuses solely on Endymion, but her light spills softly onto the surrounding grass, the yew, even Theron's worn sandals. Scholarly uncertainty. Experts fiercely debate the nature of Selena's cult following. Was it widespread devotion, or just localized fascination in places like Latmos? Tonight, it feels intensely, quietly local, light, dry humor. You imagine Selena rehearsing her approach. Play it cool. Just checking in. No big celestial speeches. Definitely no acknowledging the incident or the fake moon. Especially not the fake moon. She hovers lower than before, her chariot almost silent. "Hello, shepherd," she whispers, the sound like wind through reeds. Quiet tonight. Endymion, eternally receptive, murmurs, "Quiet, sheep." Third joke. Divine reconciliation begins with mutually acknowledged boredom. Callback. Remember the olive branch? A real one, plump and silvery green, drifts down from Selene's chariot, landing softly on Endymion's chest. Major historical fact. The olive branch was a potent symbol of peace, victory, and divine favor in ancient Greece. This one seems to whisper, "Truce." Theron sees it. He doesn't reach for a stylus. He just smiles faintly. The yew eyes the branch, considers nibbling, then decides it's probably sacred and goes back to her cud. Progress. Celine doesn't launch into gossip. She simply describes the night sky. Orion's belt is straight tonight. No squabbles. The swan is flying north. The hare, well, the hare is hiding, as usual. Her voice is softer, warmer, no longer performing. Endymion sighs. Shiny, hair. Theron leans back, hands behind his head, gazing up, not studying, just looking. The crow is silent. The fake moon's remains are just a dark shape in the ravine. The dream charm vendor sleeps under his stall. The only sounds are Celine's gentle voice, Endymion's breathing, the ew's rhythmic chewing, and the distant familiar wheeze of the shepherd's flute. No longer a lament, just a tune. Second joke. Peace, it turns out, is mostly just everyone finally shutting up and appreciating the view. You feel your own eyelids grow heavy, soothed by the ordinary miracle of a goddess and a shepherd rediscovering the simple art of a quiet night inn. Hypnos nods approvingly from the shadows. Back to basics. Days blur into a comfortable, sun-warmed monotony. Callback. The road-crossing chicken has resumed its philosophical debates by the dusty path, occasionally pausing to peck at the ghost of a dropped pilgrim olive. Major historical fact. Ancient Greek villages measured time not in hours, but in tasks. The proimos, early milking. The mesembrinos, midday rest, often enforced by heat and sheer laziness. The hesperinos, evening gathering. Latmos slips back into this gentle rhythm like a foot into a well-worn sandal. Theron still visits the hillside each dusk, but his pockets hold only a hunk of bread and cheese, not wax tablets. He sits beside the disinterested ewe, sharing crumbs, watching Endymion. Observation without agenda has become his new profession. Obscure, cultural tidbit, sharing food with animals at sacred sites was sometimes seen as a way to share blessings or appease local spirits. The ewe seems blessedly unconcerned with theology, focused solely on the cheese. Selena's visits are now a quiet constant. Her chariot glides lower, sometimes seeming to brush the tops of the tallest cypresses. Her light is a soft shawl thrown over Endymion, spilling onto the grass, Theron, and the ever-present ewe. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still fiercely debate whether Cellini's nightly vigils were motivated by romantic love, divine pity, or simply the profound peace found in talking to someone who literally cannot argue back. Her stories have changed. Less celestial bureaucracy, more simple observations. The figs on the south slope are almost ripe, she murmurs one night, her voice blending with the cicadas. The crickets near the stream sing a slightly different tune than those by the shrine. Old Manos's goat finally kicked over that amphora Theron used to guard. Light, dry humor. You imagine divine omniscience, primarily used for monitoring minor village property damage. Endymion reliably sighs. Ripe, kick, callback, the olive branch. Selena dropped lies on Endymion's chest, surprisingly fresh, as if imbued with a touch of lunar dew. Villagers notice. Quietly, without Theron's orchestration, they begin leaving small offerings at the base of Endymion's rock at dusk. Not for Selene directly, but for the place. A perfect early fig, a smooth river stone, a tiny clay whistle shaped like a sleeping ram. Second joke, the first uncurated gift shop was probably a pile of meaningful rocks at the foot of a snoring holy man. Theron watches the offerings accumulate, a small, contented smile playing on his lips. He adds a sprig of wild thyme. The ewe eyes it, decides it's not cheese and ignores it. The peace deepens, becoming something tangible, woven into the very air. Major historical fact: ancient Greeks believed certain places possessed inherent daimonies, spirits or energies, that could influence mood and well-being. Mount Latmos, after its brief frenzy, now radiates a potent daemon of profound, sleepy calm. Even the bees seem to drone in lower gear. Callback: the shepherd's flute, once wheezing lamentations, now plays simple, circular melodies that feel like audible yawns. Children fall asleep listening to it. Dogs nap mid-bark. Obscure cultural tidbit: some believed the scent of wild thyme, crushed underfoot on sun-baked hills, carried drowsiness on its pungent breeze. Latmos is practically marinated in it. One night, Selene arrives earlier than usual. Her light is soft, almost hesitant again, but different. Not shyness, but intention. She hovers very low, her chariot wheels whispering through the tips of the grass. Theron, leaning against his rock, feels the cool silver light wash over him like water. The ewe stops chewing, momentarily transfixed. Selene looks down at Endymion, her expression unreadable in the moonglow, but the air thrums with a quiet gravity, scholarly uncertainty. Historians still argue whether the next act was a conscious divine choice or simply the culmination of Selene's nature. The moon, after all, governs cycles and tides, including the tide of sleep. "Shepherd," Selene whispers, her voice clearer than ever, yet softer, like water over smooth stones. "The nights are long. The path of the moon is wearying. Your peace is a harbor." She extends a hand, not touching him, but letting a concentrated beam of pure, cool moonlight fall upon Endymion's brow. It doesn't wake him. It settles him. His breathing deepens, becoming impossibly slow, impossibly steady. The faint lines around his eyes smooth away. He looks less like a man asleep, and more like a figure carved from moonlight itself. Serene, timeless, anchored, light, dry humor. You imagine Hypnos, god of sleep, feeling a flicker of professional jealousy at this masterclass in eternal napping. "Rest," Selene murmurs, the word carrying the weight of a blessing, or perhaps a gentle sentence. Rest deeply. Dream of quiet fields and stars that are just stars. The moonlight intensifies for a heartbeat, wrapping Endymion like a silvery cocoon, then fades back to its usual soft glow. But the change is unmistakable. His sleep is no longer temporary. It is a state of being. Third joke: the ultimate solution to mortal worries. Divine, indefinite suspension. Theron feels no urge to document, only a profound sense of rightness, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. The ewe resumes chewing, a soft, rhythmic counterpoint to Endymion's eternal breath. Callback: the olive branch on Endymion's chest glimmers faintly. Selene doesn't launch into stories tonight. She simply sits in her chariot, gazing down. A quiet vigil that feels less like watching and more like keeping company. The air hums with a deep, resonant silence, thicker than before, sweeter than honey. The shepherd's flute falls silent. The cicadas pause. Even the breeze holds its breath. Second joke: you realize the greatest invention wasn't pillow talk. It was the off switch. Theron closes his eyes, not to sleep, but to simply be in the radiant, silent gift of the endless night. The hill of Latmos isn't just quiet now. It's a sanctuary woven from moonlight and the soft, unending breath of the shepherd who dreamed of sheep. Hypnos himself would tip his hat. if he weren't already fast asleep. The next dawn feels different, not abrupt, but softer, as if Helios himself is tiptoeing over the horizon, mindful of the profound stillness on the hill. Callback. Theron wakes stiffly against his rock, blinking in the gentle apricot light. His first glance is toward Endymion. The shepherd lies unchanged, bathed in the first sunbeams, yet radiating a deeper, cooler serenity. The lingering kiss of Selenia's concentrated moonlight. The olive branch on his chest seems to have rooted faintly into the lambswool pillow, sprouting a single, impossibly silver leaf. Major historical fact. Miraculous plant growth near sleeping figures was often interpreted as divine favor in ancient Greece, proof of a hero shrine in the making. Obscure cultural tidbit. Silver leaves specifically were linked to Artemis and Selene, symbols of the untouchable, nocturnal purity of the moon. Light, dry humor. You imagine the village botanist having a minor existential crisis. Is it a horticultural miracle? Or just really good fertilizer from a goddess? Word spreads slowly, carried not by shouts, but by hushed tones and odd gestures. Villagers approach the hillside not as pilgrims seeking spectacle, but as visitors to a sacred grove. The disinterested yew has become a semi-official guardian, placidly chewing near Endymion's feet, occasionally nudging away an overeager child. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether animals were intentionally placed as guardians at early sacred sites, or simply wandered in and refused to leave. Evidence here leans towards the latter. Theron finds himself not organizing, but mediating quiet moments. Give him space, Elpis, he murmurs, to a wide-eyed girl clutching a fistful of wildflowers. The dreams he's having, they're probably very long and very wool-related. Second joke. Eternal sleep, it turns out, requires surprisingly little maintenance beyond occasional dusting and respectful silence. Celine's presence shifts. She no longer needs the dramatic chariot descent. Her light simply is a constant, gentle suffusion that begins at dusk and lingers long after moonset, clinging to Endymion like dew. Callback. The dream charm vendor, sensing the profound shift, offers only one item now. Small, simple mooncakes, made of barley flour and honey, shaped like crescents. For quiet contemplation, he says softly. No guarantees, no theatrics. They taste of sunlight and patience. Villagers buy them, eating slowly on the hillside, sharing crumbs with the yew. Third joke. The ultimate dream charm is apparently just a well-baked carbohydrate consumed in respectful silence. Theron nibbles one, gazing at the silver leaf. His clipboard is forgotten. Wisdom, it seems, finally found him when he stopped chasing it with a stylus. Time loses its sharp edges on the hill of Latmos. Seasons turn, but Endymion remains untouched. The silver leaf grows, a small, shimmering sprig against the dark wool of his tunic. Rain beads on it like mercury. Frost traces delicate lacework without harming it. Major historical fact. Ancient Greek heroes granted eternal sleep, or translated to divine status, apotheosis, were often believed to exist outside mortal time, their resting places imbued with a perpetual, seasonless tranquility. Callback. Old Manos finally wakes one spring morning under his olive tree, stretches, scratches his beard, and mutters about needing to check on goats he hasn't tended in months. Life, for the village, flows around the hill like a river around a deeply anchored stone. Selene, too, seems changed. Her nightly vigils are less about narration, more about presence. She sits in her chariot, not hovering, but resting, the silver reins loose. Her gaze on Endymion holds a profound, quiet contentment, scholarly uncertainty. Experts fiercely debate whether Selene's act bound Endymion to her service as a kind of eternal dream conduit, or was purely an act of selfless love, gifting him the peace he embodied. Her stillness suggests the latter, light, dry humor. You imagine Hera, queen of the gods, peering down and muttering, all that fuss over a napping shepherd. Honestly, some goddesses have no standards, or perhaps far better ones. One clear autumn night, Selene does something new. She doesn't speak to Endymion. She speaks to the place. Her voice, woven from starlight and cool wind, flows over the hillside, touching the silver-leafed olive branch. The sleeping shepherd, Theron, who now dozes lightly nearby most nights. The contented ewe, the worn stones villagers, leave as offerings. This place holds peace, she murmurs, the words settling like silver dust. A well of stillness in a turning world. Guard it, tend it. Let the weary rest their eyes here, and the troubled find a moment's quiet. It's not a command. It's a blessing, etched onto the air itself. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some believed certain landscapes could absorb and store divine utterances, becoming oracles of calm rather than prophecy. Second joke. The first noise-canceling sanctuary was probably just a hill where a goddess whispered, "Shh." Callback. Theron wakes just enough to hear the final words. He doesn't write them down. He simply sighs, a sound of pure understanding, and tucks a corner of his cloak more securely around the ew's sleeping form. The mooncake's vendor leaves a fresh crescent on a flat stone near Endymion's head. It gleams faintly in Selene's light. Third joke. The most powerful divine rituals involve baked goods and strategic napping. You feel the blessing settle in your own bones. A deep, cool calm seeping from the earth, the silver leaf, the eternally sleeping shepherd who dreamed of sheep, and the goddess who loved silence more than song. The hill isn't just a place anymore. It's a lullaby made of land and moonlight. Hypnos would approve. He probably does, in his sleep. Years ripple past Mount Latmos like stones skipped on a still pond. Small ones, barely causing a splash. Callback. The silver leaf on Endymion's chest has become a sapling, a slender, impossible olive tree, its leaves shimmering like captured moonlight, even at noon, casting dappled, cool shade over the sleeping shepherd. Major historical fact. Hero shrines, Heroe, in ancient Greece, often featured sacred trees, believed to channel the hero's power or presence, a living connection between the divine favor and the mortal world. This one sprouted from a goddess's touch and a shepherd's breath. Obscure cultural tidbit. Silver-leafed plants were sometimes called moon-drenched and thought to hold prophetic dreams in their shadows. Villagers whisper their troubles to the tree at dusk, hoping for guidance in their sleep. Light, dry humor. You imagine the tree's prophetic dreams are mostly about exceptionally green grass and the strategic avoidance of goats. The village hasn't grown grand, but it has settled into its purpose. Callback. Theron is simply old Theron now, his philosopher's beard gone entirely white. He spends his days dozing in the silver tree's shade, occasionally waking to shoo away a particularly ambitious beetle, or explain to a wide-eyed child why Endymion is having a very long think about sheep. His chief onirologist title is forgotten. He's the keeper of the quiet, a role requiring minimal effort and maximum napping. scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether sites like Latmos developed formal priesthoods or relied on respected elders who simply happened to be there a lot. Theron exemplifies the latter. Second joke, the ultimate career progression. From frantic note-taker to professional atmosphere appreciator. Pilgrims still come, but differently. No more bedrolls or amphoras of offerings. They arrive weary, dusty travelers, farmers with furrowed brows, mothers carrying fretful babies. They sit in the silver tree's cool shade, breathe air thick with the scent of wild thyme, and something deeper, like cool stone and starlight. They don't speak much. They listen to the wind sighing through the silver leaves, to the distant, somnolent flute, to the profound silence radiating from Endymion. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Greeks believed simply being near profound peace could recalibrate the soul's restless hum, like tuning a lyre by proximity to a perfect note. Third joke, ancient wellness retreats. No juice cleanses, just strategic sitting near excellent nappers. Babies doze in slings. Worry lines soften. The dream charm vendor sells only mooncakes and small clay cups of cool spring water drawn from the stream near the shrine. His pitch, just sit, breathe, maybe nap. The quiet does the work. Theron, half asleep, mumbles, told you. Less engineering. Decades become a gentle blur. Callback. The disinterested Yu's great-great-great-granddaughters now form a small, placid flock that grazes near the silver tree. They inherit her profound lack of concern for divine phenomena, focusing instead on the quality of the shade and the absence of wolves. Major historical fact. Ancient Greek sacred sites often accumulated practical features over time. A reliable spring, good grazing, peaceful shade, making them natural community centers as much as spiritual ones. Latmos offers premium napping real estate, scholarly uncertainty. Experts fiercely debate whether the legendary eternal sleep of Endymion was a later mythologization of a local hero buried on the hill, or if a shepherd truly slumbered for centuries beneath a magical tree. The silver leaves rustle, offering no definitive answer. Old Theron passes one midsummer night, curled like a contented dormouse at the base of the silver tree. He doesn't wake. They find him at dawn, a faint smile on his lips, one hand resting lightly on a root that gleams like polished bone. Light, dry humor. You imagine Hypnos greeting him. Took your time finding the real job, eh? No grand funeral pyre. The villagers bury him simply, near the stream, under an ordinary olive tree. They leave a mooncake on his grave. The quiet he kept doesn't falter. It absorbs him. A young potter's granddaughter, Elpis, the wide-eyed girl from years past, now a woman with calm eyes, takes up the unofficial mantle. She sweeps fallen silver leaves from around Endymion, replenishes the water cups, and gently reminds over-eager visitors about the inside voices, or better yet, no voices rule. Obscure cultural tidbit. Caretaker roles at rural shrines, often passed matrilineally, or to those showing a natural affinity for the site's daemon. Elpis just fits. Second joke. Succession planning in sacred sites. Less divine revelation, more noticing who remembers to sweep. Celine's presence is a constant, gentle pressure. Her moonlight seems woven into the silver leaves, the cool air, the deep, slow breath of the eternally sleeping shepherd. Her chariot is rarely seen. Her light simply deepens the shadows and softens the edges of the night. Callback. On still evenings, especially when the moon is full. The air sometimes hums faintly, a resonance that isn't sound, but felt, like the echo of a goddess whispering to a dreamer. Rest, the hum seems to say. All is well. The stars are just stars. The sheep are probably fine. Third joke, celestial reassurance. Low on specifics, high on vibe. Endymion, the epicenter of centuries of quiet, sighs. A sound like wind through ancient trees. The silver olive shivers, scattering motes of cool light. Elpis sits nearby, mending a fishing net. Her movements slow, synchronized with the rhythm of the hill. The flute player, impossibly old now, plays a single, sustained note that hangs in the air like the promise of sleep. The dream charm vendor's grandson sells mooncakes. The sheep graze. Time, on the hill of Latmos, isn't passing. It's pooling, deep, still, and silver as a moonlit dream. Hypnos doesn't just approve. He's practically a co-owner. Centuries are kind to the hill of Latmos. Not grand, sweeping kindness, but the gentle, persistent sort. Like moss, softening stone. Callback. The silver olive tree is no longer a sapling. It's a venerable giant, its trunk smooth and cool as moon-washed marble. Its canopy a living tapestry of shimmering leaves, casting dappled, perpetually twilight shade over Endymion. Major historical fact: as the Hellenistic world shifted and Roman influence grew, ancient Greek hero cults often persisted, absorbed into local practice. Less formal worship, more deep-seated reverence for a genius loci, the spirit of a place. Latmos embodies this. Obscure cultural tidbit. Travelers in later eras spoke of moon trees, whose shade induced prophetic dreams or profound calm. Scholars suspect many were inspired by distant whispers of Endymion's grove. Light, dry humor. You imagine Roman tax collectors getting unusually lenient after a picnic under its branches. The figures, they just seem less important here. Marcus, perhaps a nap first? The village is quieter now, smaller. Time and tides of empire have drawn the young away to bustling ports, but the hill remains a beacon for the weary. Callback. Elpis is old, her hair as silver as the tree's leaves, her movements slow as honey. She teaches her great niece, Lyra, named for the sleeping weaver centuries past, the quiet rituals, sweeping fallen silver leaves. They dissolve like mist if left too long, refilling the spring water cups at the stone basin, worn smooth by generations of hands, sitting silently at dusk. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians fiercely debate whether the continuity of such sites relied on oral tradition or simply the undeniable, palpable feel of the place itself. Lyra learns by feeling the cool air thicken near the tree, by the way birdsong seems muffled within its shade. Second joke. On-the-job training involves mostly advanced sitting and strategic shushing. Callback. Travelers still come. A weary Roman legionnaire, miles from his cohort, stumbles into the grove. He sits heavily on a sun-warmed rock, the clank of his armor startlingly loud. He stares at Endymion, at the impossible tree, at old Lyra placidly carding wool nearby. He removes his helmet, then his sword belt. He leans back against the silver trunk and sleeps for 3 days straight. When he wakes, he leaves a simple bronze fibula, brooch, pinned to a low branch, an offering not to a god, but to the quiet. Third joke. The ultimate review. A soldier, voluntarily disarming for a nap. The dream charm vendor's descendant, now just a baker in the village, leaves a mooncake beside the sleeping soldier. Some traditions, like good naps, endure simply because they work. Celine has become less a visitor, more an atmosphere. Her presence is the coolness rising from the earth at dusk, the extra shimmer on a dewdrop, the profound depth of the silence beneath the silver leaves. Major historical fact. As classical myths evolved, Selene became increasingly conflated with Artemis, and later Luna, her identity blurring. But here, on this hill, she remains distinctly herself, the quiet watcher, the weaver of stillness, obscure cultural tidbit. Some late antique mystical texts speak of lunar currents, subtle flows of divine peace, emanating from places touched deeply by the moon. Scholars dismiss it as Neoplatonic fancy. Visitors to Latmos might disagree. Light, dry humor. You imagine Selene attending an Olympian management meeting via muted light beam, mostly just listening, thinking, my KPIs are exceptional. One shepherd, eternally peaceful. Productivity, max serenity. No notes. Callback. One crisp autumn night, a figure appears beneath the tree. Not a traveler, not a villager, a young woman, her skin holding a faint, pearlescent luminescence. Her hair a cascade of dark silk shot through with threads of pure starlight. She moves with the silence of deep space, scholarly uncertainty. Historians and mythographers argue endlessly over the nature and number of Selene's children. Was this one of them, a minor star nymph drawn by the grove's power, or simply a personification of the grove's accumulated peace? She kneels beside Endymion, not touching him, her gaze holding centuries of quiet affection. She places a single, perfect white poppy, symbol of eternal sleep, beside the now ancient olive branch, woven into the roots of the silver tree. Second joke. Family reunions on the divine plain. Less barbecue, more profound silences, and symbolic flora. The woman, let's call her Hesychia, for quietude, doesn't stay long. She rises, her form seeming to dissolve slightly at the edges into the moonlight. She looks at old Lyra, dozing nearby, and at Lyra's young daughter, playing silently with pebbles in the dust. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touches Hesychia's lips. She lifts a hand, not in blessing, but in acknowledgement, a shared understanding. Then she is gone, leaving only the scent of cool stone and the faint afterimage of starlight on the retina. Third joke, the ultimate caretaker handover. No paperwork, just a celestial nod and a really good vibe check. Callback. The next morning, Lyra finds the white poppy. It doesn't wilt. It glows faintly at its heart. A tiny captured moonbeam. She doesn't explain it to her daughter. She simply points to it, then to Endymion, then puts a finger to her lips. Shh. The child nods, wide-eyed, understanding the oldest language of the hill. The legionnaire's fibula gleams on the branch. The sheep graze. The silver leaves rustle a lullaby, older than Rome, older than Athens, older than names. The quiet isn't just kept anymore. It breathes. It is. And Hypnos? He's not just co-owner anymore. He's practically the foundation. Deep, cool, and utterly, utterly still. Time, that relentless tide, laps at the edges of the grove. Empires rise and fall like breaths in a sleeper's chest. Callback. The worn path to the silver tree is now flanked by rough-hewn stones carved with a new symbol. A simple fish, a shepherd's crook crossed with an anchor. Major historical fact. As Christianity spreads through the Roman world, ancient sacred sites were often repurposed, their daimones reinterpreted as saints or angels guarding holy ground. Latmos, it seems, becomes a place for hermits, weary souls seeking God in the deep silence Endymion embodies. Obscure, Cultural tidbit: early Christian ascetics in Anatolia sometimes sought out deserted places of the old gods, believing profound quiet was fertile ground for divine encounter. Light, dry humor. You imagine a stern Byzantine monk trying to lecture the silver tree on theology, only to find himself yawning mid-diatribe. The yawn, heresy of excessive calm, must be snore, callback. Lyra's descendants still tend the grove, their role blending seamlessly into that of caretakers for the small cluster of wattle and daub cells that spring up nearby. The monks call the place hesychia, quietude. They don't worship Endymion. They venerate the silence he anchors. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians fiercely debate whether early monastic communities deliberately co-opted pagan sites of power or were simply drawn, like their predecessors, to places with an undeniable atmosphere of peace. Here, the distinction blurs. An old monk, Brother Theoktistos, tends the silver tree like a sacred relic. He doesn't sweep its leaves. He collects them as they dissolve, whispering, "Manna from the moon's own garden." Second joke: monastic life. Swapping Theron's chaotic note-taking for a highly organized contemplation of naps, the tree adapts, or perhaps it simply endures. Its shade feels cooler, deeper, smelling less of wild thyme and more of cool stone and aged parchment. Callback: travelers now include pilgrims bearing icons, not offerings. A woman kneels near Endymion, not to ask for dreams, but to pray for her restless son. She leaves a small, rough-carved wooden dove at the tree's roots. Brother Theoktistos finds it, places it gently on a niche in the hermitage wall beside a beeswax candle. "See," he murmurs, to a novice struggling with his own noisy thoughts. "Even prayers rest here." Third joke: the ultimate spiritual hack. Outsourcing your inner turmoil to an eternally quiet shepherd. The silver leaves shimmer, indifferent to the changing names of gods, attuned only to the constant hum of human need for stillness. The sheep, now tended by a taciturn novice, graze placidly. Some traditions, it seems, are basic. Centuries fold again. Minarets pierce the distant skyline where temples once stood. The call to prayer echoes across the valleys, a new rhythm woven into the old silence. Callback: the hermitage of Hesychia is a ruin now, reclaimed by ivy and the patient roots of the ever-growing silver tree. But the grove remains. Major historical fact: under Ottoman rule, many ancient sacred sites persisted as local yater, tombs of holy figures, real or imagined, believed to grant blessings or peace. Endymion's resting place becomes known as Durgun Soban, the still shepherd. Obscure cultural tidbit: Turkish folklore speaks of yater places possessing huzur, a profound, healing tranquility. Travelers tie strips of cloth, kaput, to nearby branches, whispering wishes for peace, healing sleep, or simply relief from a noisy world. Light, dry humor. You imagine a weary Ottoman tax collector, drawn by the tales of huzur, tying a cloth and muttering, "Just one quiet hour, please," before the Pasha asks for the impossible. Callback: the descendants are harder to trace now, but the caretakers remain. An old woman, Aishi, lives in a stone hut built into the ruins of the hermitage. She knows the stories: the moon goddess, the sleeping shepherd, the monks, the yater. She tends the cloth strips, replaces faded ones, sweeps the smooth stones around the silver tree. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians argue whether the continuity of reverence at such sites stems from folk memory or simply the land's inherent power to soothe weary souls. Aishi doesn't argue. She points to the tree, to the sleeping form beneath it, seemingly carved from moonlight and mountain stone, and says simply, Durgunluk burası. The stillness is here. Second joke, multilingual marketing for sacred sites. Quietude here. Huzur available. Bring your own pillow. One warm afternoon, a dervish passes through. He carries the dust of 100 roads on his patched cloak. He sits beneath the silver leaves, closes his eyes, and begins the soft, rhythmic zikr, the remembrance of God. Huh, huh, huh. The sound isn't loud, but it vibrates in the ancient air. Callback. The silver leaves seem to shimmer in response. Not brighter, but deeper, absorbing the sacred vibration into their own quiet hum. The dervish opens his eyes hours later, his face serene. He doesn't tie a cloth. He places a single, smooth, black stone from a distant river at the base of the tree. Aishi finds it, nods. Another language of peace understood. Third joke. Spiritual technologies converge. Celestial moonlight meets Sufi breathwork, moderated by a shepherd who only dreams of grass. The sheep, oblivious to shifts in empire and creed, continue their slow, cud-chewing meditation beneath the timeless silver canopy. Hypnos, watching empires flicker like dreams, keeps the foundation steady, deep, cool, utterly still. The 19th century arrives with a clatter of steam and earnest curiosity. Callback. The silver tree's canopy now shades weathered Ottoman saput strips, tangled with older, mossy pilgrim tokens. A bronze Roman fibula, a tiny Byzantine clay dove, the ghost of a mooncake offering. Major historical fact. European antiquarians and romantic poets, fueled by tales of lost Arcadius, began scouring Anatolia for authentic classical sites, often guided by local lore about enchanted groves or sleeping giants. Obscure cultural tidbit. Victorian travelers frequently carried dream journals, believing exotic locales induced prophetic visions, or at least publishable melancholy. Light. Dry humor. You imagine a tweed-clad Englishman named Algernon trying to sketch the silver tree while muttering about deucedly tricky luminosity and infernal gnats. Professor Thaddeus Smythe, FRS, Fellow of the Royal Society, and frankly, Fellow of very little sleep, arrives with measuring rods, a bulky camera obscura, and a profound belief that science can dissect any mystery. Callback. He sets up tripods where Theron once measured auras, aiming lenses at Endymion. Remarkable state of preservation, he exclaims, peering through his brass eyepiece. Cadaverous rigidity absent, skin exhibits, pearlescence, possibly mineral leaching. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still debate whether Smythe's subsequent paper on the putative perpetual torpor of a carrion shepherd, geological luminescence, or mass hysteria, advanced science, or just induced sleep in its readers. Second joke, early archaeology, equal parts discovery and desperate denial of anything vaguely magical. Smythe's photographic plates, painstakingly developed, show only a blur of silver light where Endymion lies. The silver tree appears as a smudge of fog. His thermometers register inexplicable cold spots, atmospheric anomalies, he declares, blaming localized telluric vapors. Callback. Aishi's great-granddaughter, Eleni, now tends the grove. She watches Smythe with the placid indifference of the silver tree itself. When he tries to chip a leaf sample for spectral analysis, my good woman, the leaf crumbles to silvery dust in his forceps. The sheep, unimpressed by science, graze on. Third joke, the tree's review of Victorian methodology. Minimal stars. Would not recommend chipping. Smythe departs, baffled, leaving behind a brass button and a lingering scent of camphor. Eleni sweeps the dust into the roots. The quiet settles back, deeper for the interruption. The saput strips flutter like sleepy eyelids. The modern world hums at the foot of the mountain. Roads snake closer. The distant growl of machinery sometimes drifts up on the wind. Major historical fact. The late 20th and early 21st centuries saw a global surge in wellness tourism and digital detox retreats, seeking antidotes to hyperconnectivity. Places whispering of ancient stillness became magnets. Callback. The Hill of Latmos, now often called Hush Hill or the Shepherd's Repose, online features in niche travel blogs. Obscure cultural tidbit. Biofeedback therapists occasionally cite places like that Turkish grove as natural examples of entrainment, where the environment's low vibe supposedly slows brainwaves. Light, dry humor. You imagine a Silicon Valley exec trying to meditate, his smartwatch buzzing, heart rate, suboptimal serenity. Please achieve deeper chill. A small, tasteful retreat center, Celine's sanctuary. Reconnect with your inner stillness. Nestles discreetly in the valley below. Guests hike up at dawn or dusk. Callback. Eleni's grandson, Mehmet, acts as the unofficial guardian. He meets them near the old hermitage ruins, finger to his lips. Shh. Just sit. Breathe. The shepherd listens. Or doesn't. Either way, be quiet. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians and anthropologists endlessly debate the ethics and authenticity of marketing ancient, sacred sites for modern stress relief. Does the quiet care? Second joke. The silver tree probably has a better Yelp rating than the Parthenon. Atmosphere. A++. No cues. Sheep are chill. 10 by 10 would nap again. Guests spread yoga mats on the smooth stones. They try not to stare too obviously at Endymion or the tree. Callback. The sheep are semi-celebrities. Are they descendants? Whispers a woman from Berlin, snapping a discreet photo. Mehmet shrugs. They eat grass. They stand still. Like him. He points to Endymion. Third joke. The ultimate mindfulness guides. One immortal napper, one magic tree, and a flock of ruminant Zen masters. A tech entrepreneur sits rigidly, jaw clenched, battling his urge to check his phone. Slowly, the cool air. The rustle of impossible silver leaves, which still refuse to photograph clearly. The deep, resonant silence radiating from the hill. It seeps in. His shoulders drop. His breath deepens. He doesn't achieve enlightenment. He achieves a 2-hour nap so profound he drools on his designer athleisure wear. He leaves a hefty donation in Mehmet's offering box, a discreet wooden affair near the path, and a 5-star review. Better than any app. Bring earplugs for your thoughts. The saput strips now mingle with biodegradable paper notes, bearing wishes like quiet mind PLs and less existential dread. The silver tree absorbs them all, its leaves shimmering with the accumulated size of millennia. Hypnos, observing via cosmic Wi-Fi, gives a sleepy thumbs up. The foundation holds. A new kind of pilgrim arrives, armed not with offerings or prayer beads, but with sleek, silent devices that glow with their own cold light. Callback. Where Smythe's camera obscura failed, drones now whir like metallic gnats, attempting aerial surveys of the silver canopy. Major historical fact. The 21st century saw the rise of digital cartography and LiDAR scanning, revolutionizing archaeology, but often clashing with the intangible essence of sacred sites. Obscure cultural tidbit. Quantum physics enthusiasts online speculate that places like Hush Hill generate consciousness null zones or temporal eddies, citing unverifiable fluctuations in phone signal strength. Light, dry humor. You imagine the silver tree sighing. If trees sighed, not this again. Can't a millennia-old nap hotspot get some peace? Dr. Anya Petrova, a neuroscientist specializing in neuroacoustics of tranquility, sets up a discrete array of sensors around the grove's perimeter. Callback. Her equipment sits where Theron's frost-covered tablets once lay, humming faintly, measuring alpha wave propagation, she whispers to Mehmet, who nods politely while thinking of lunch. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians and scientists now debate whether measurable brainwave changes in visitors prove the hill's power or simply confirm the well-documented effect of sitting very still in a pretty place. Second joke, modern research, spending grant money to confirm what sheep have known for centuries. Naps are nice. Petrova's initial graphs show erratic spikes until Endymion sighs in his sleep. Suddenly, every monitor flatlines into smooth, deep delta waves. Impossible, she breathes. That coherence, it's like the entire hill is dreaming as one. Her funding just got very secure. Callback. The Dream Charm vendor's legacy endures. Mehmet sells hand-thrown ceramic cups of wild thyme tea and woven grass mats. A Silicon Valley CEO, fresh off Petrova's Delta Wave High, offers him venture capital for Serenity Tech TM. We'll scale the stillness. Subscription-based naps. Biofeedback integration. Mehmet sips his tea, watching a drone buzz too close to the silver leaves. Third joke. The tree's response is immediate. The drone's signal drops. It wobbles, then lands gently in the disinterested ew's grazing patch. The ewe eyes it, then deliberately steps on it. Crunch. Scalability issues, Mehmet murmurs, handing the CEO another cup of tea. Try the time. It's grounding. The saput strips flutter in the breeze. Now tied with a biodegradable hemp cord, the hill absorbs the 21st century's noise like a sponge. Callback. Petrov's research goes viral. Hush Hill, the Earth's own sleep pod. Major historical fact. The concept of blue zones, longevity hotspots, gained traction, often linked to environment and community. Latmos becomes an unofficial gray zone, a place not for long life, but for deep restorative pauses. Obscure cultural tidbit, online ASMR communities create virtual Hush Hill soundscapes, rustling silver leaves, distant sheep, Endymion's breath, garnering millions of sleepy listens. Light, dry humor. You imagine Endymion unknowingly topping the ambient sleep charts, outselling rainforest noises and cat purrs. The shepherd's breath mix, now with 20% more existential calm. Callback. Mehmet remains the calm eye of the storm. He turns away influencers seeking the perfect woke up like this selfie with Endymion. He doesn't consent, Mehmet states simply, pointing to the eternally sleeping shepherd. Scholarly uncertainty. Bioethicists begin heated debates about the rights of mythical figures or their earthly representations in the digital age. Second joke. The first legal briefs drafted concerning the publicity rights of millennia-old comatose shepherds. Mehmet solves it practically. He positions a particularly photogenic, shaggy sheep near the path. Meet Kendi. He consents for belly rubs and grass. Hush Hill sheep trends briefly. The true magic remains stubbornly analog. Callback. A woman arrives, eyes shadowed by grief. She doesn't hike to the grove. She stumbles. She sits on a sun-warmed stone near the Roman fibula, now almost fused to a low branch. She doesn't pray. She doesn't meditate. She just folds in on herself. The cool air thickens around her. The silver leaves overhead seem to still. Endymion's next sigh is deeper, longer, like an exhalation shared. Third joke. The hill's review system is nonverbal, but effective. The woman sleeps slumped against the tree for hours, waking with puffy eyes, but a face strangely smoothed, as if her sorrow had been gently pressed between the pages of an ancient, quiet book. She touches a silver leaf. It leaves a faint, cool dusting on her fingertip. She doesn't take a selfie. She ties a simple blue thread to a branch, the color of deep twilight, of held breath, of peace finally found. Mehmet nods. The sheep, Kendi, ambles over and nudges her hand. She smiles. A small, fragile thing. The grove doesn't cure. It holds. And beneath the impossible tree, Endymion sleeps on, dreaming his simple, endless dream of untroubled sheep and skies forever at rest. Hypnos, observing the blue thread join millennia of wishes, drifts deeper into his own contented cosmic slumber. The foundation, unshaken, ready for the final stretch, the weight of millennia settles like dust motes in a sunbeam. Callback. The blue thread, tied by the grieving woman, has faded to the color of old denim, blending with Ottoman saput, Byzantine clay, and the ghostly imprint of a Roman fibula on the silver tree's lowest branch. Major historical fact. In late antiquity, dream interpretation manuals, onera critica, circulated widely, attempting to systematize the chaos of the subconscious. None, scholars agree, had a chapter titled Eternal Shepherds and Moonlit Silence, a guide. Obscure, cultural tidbit. Some Byzantine monks believed profound silence could be stored in polished stones, creating dreaming stones for troubled nights. Fragments of smooth marble, cool to the touch, sometimes appear at the silver tree's roots. Light, dry humor. You imagine a harried Constantinopolitan merchant pocketing one, whispering, "For the wife. Cheaper than therapy, quieter than divorce." The world's noise feels more distant here, yet paradoxically closer. A low digital hum, felt in the bones, rather than heard. Callback. Mehmet is old now, his movements as deliberate as the slow turn of seasons. He watches a young woman, Layla, teach her daughter the quiet rituals, sweeping dissolving silver leaves. They vanish like breath on cold air, refilling the ancient stone basin, whose spring still runs clear and cold, placing a smooth, dreaming stone near Endymion's feet. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians still fiercely debate whether the transmission of caretaking at sites like Latmos represents cultural inheritance, or simply the gravitational pull of places radiating profound hazur. Layla doesn't debate. She places her palm flat on the silver trunk, feels the deep, quiet hum resonating up her arm, and nods. Second joke. Job description unchanged for 2,500 years. Ambient atmosphere manager. Primary skill, advanced shushing. Callback. Dr. Petrova's sensors, long since packed away, left behind a subtle shift. Visitors now sometimes arrive wearing sleek wristbands, blinking with soft blue lights, monitoring heart rate variability, seeking quantified stillness. "Look, Maya, my serenity score just hit 92, whispers a man, eyes glued to his screen. Layla gently taps his wrist, points to the screen, then makes a sweeping gesture encompassing the tree, Endymion, the grazing sheep, the layered quiet. "The number is small," she murmurs. "This is big." He blinks, turns off the band. The silence deepens by a fraction. Third joke. The ultimate biofeedback. A flock of sheep utterly indifferent to your stress metrics. Kendi, the photogenic sheep, now ancient and regally shaggy, bumps the man's hand. See? Layla smiles. Kendi's score is always 100. He doesn't need a band. The man sits. He breathes. He achieves a state the band could only dream of quantifying. Night falls like a velvet cloak over Mount Latmos. The stars, indifferent to names and empires, spin their slow, silent dance. You are here, now, at the heart of it. Beneath the vast silver canopy, the air holds a coolness that sinks into your skin, a stillness that settles in your bones, like sediment finding its bed. Callback. Endymion lies as he has for uncountable lifetimes, a figure sculpted from moonlight and mountain patience, his breath a slow tide marking an ocean of time. The impossible olive tree arches above, each leaf a tiny mirror, catching starlight, casting shifting, liquid patterns on the worn stones below. The scent is ancient, sun-warmed time, cool damp earth, the faint ozone tang of high air, and something else, the smell of deep, undisturbed peace, like old paper and stone left in shadow. Major historical fact. Across cultures and epochs, humans have sought temenos, sacred enclosures, thresholds between the mundane and the numinous. This grove, anchored by a shepherd's endless dream, is such a place. It asks nothing. It offers only the profound, simple gift of its own deep quiet. Obscure cultural tidbit. The oldest Anatolian shepherd's tales speak of mountains breathing in their sleep. Sit here long enough, breathe slowly enough, and you feel it. The slow, rhythmic sigh of the earth itself, sinking with Endymion's breath, sinking with yours. Scholarly uncertainty. Historians, scientists, poets will forever ask, does the place make the quiet, or does the quiet, gathered over ages, make the place? The silver leaves shimmer, offering no answer, only the question itself, soft as a feather falling. Callback. Layla sits nearby, not watching you, not watching Endymion, simply being. Her presence is like another smooth stone in the stream of stillness. The sheep, dark shapes in the moon-drenched grass, are motionless, islands of wool in a silver sea. Light, dry humor, final, gentle. You imagine Hypnos, god of sleep, finally kicking back in his cosmic lounge, feet up, remote in hand, muttering, see? That's how you run a franchise. Minimal drama, maximum Z's. Take notes, Olympus. Feel the cool earth beneath you. Listen to the silence. Not an absence, but a presence. It's the rustle of a billion silver leaves, breathing stardust. It's the slow, deep sigh of the sleeping shepherd, a rhythm older than language. It's the distant, remembered echo of Celine's chariot wheels, long since stilled into the fabric of the night. It's the accumulated sigh of every pilgrim, every mourner, every seeker who ever sat on these stones and simply let go. The quiet isn't empty. It's full. Full of time, full of peace, full of the simple, unending dream of untroubled rest. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your breath deepen, matching the slow pulse of the hill. Let the cool air wrap around you like the softest lamb's wool. Let the starlight filtering through the silver leaves paint patterns on the back of your eyelids. There are no more stories to tell here, no more histories to untangle, only this deep, deep well of stillness. Drink from it, sink into it. The shepherd sleeps. The moon keeps her watch, woven into the leaves, the air, the stones. The world turns, gently, elsewhere. You're here, in the hush, in the hold, in the heart of the quiet that Endymion, the accidental inventor of pillow talk, The hero who mastered the art of stillness began with a sigh beneath a Carian moon. Rest now. Just rest. If this slow unfurling of stillness has eased your mind, consider leaving a digital olive branch, a like, a quiet tap. Subscribe for more journeys into history's deepest cushions. Whisper where you rested tonight in the comments. Let's map this lullaby across the waking world. Now, let the silence carry you into your own gentle harbor of sleep. Good night.